Well, and because so much of our identity is wrapped up in our job titles and our performance.
Mm.
And I think this gets back to like if we divorce purpose from a job title, like purpose does not equal job title. Like it's so much deeper than that. So like if your purpose is being a curious human and showing up with your curiosity in every interaction that you find yourself in, that then is a very different space than I'm a writer.
Mm.
Like, sure, you're a writer, but like maybe you're a writer because you're a curious person. Like, you can also be a curious person and be an archaeologist or, or a spiritual director or, whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
just, it kind of takes the pressure off. And, we do not do a good job of that in higher ed. And I'm sure other areas too. But yeah, it's really just learning like you are not your job title. Like you
Mm.
you are so much more than that. You are worth more than that. Like you matter outside of all the degrees hanging on your walls or the student evals or it's just but it's hard. It's hard when everything else says the opposite.
Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to Academic Misfits. It's been a long time. You may have heard. Yes, in September, I suffered a fracture of my knee. So, I've been recovering for the last 3 months, learning how to walk. But yeah, how have you been doing? How has everybody been doing? And, are you in the marking season? Are you out of academia and thriving and no longer having to grade anything or deal with AI? So, today, my guest is Liz Angeli. In the beginning, I say Anjali, and that's my bad. Should be Angeli. And Liz was my client for a while, a long time ago, and is now thriving in a role that includes academia because, I guess what I said to her was, this podcast is not about how to leave academia. There's a lot of podcasts that, that's their remit. That's what they do. And they do a really good job of it. But this one is about thriving, really, and finding your own way of swimming in the waters, of skating on the edge without hurting yourself along the way. About finding that part where you have joy, where you find the spot where you're able to thrive, where you're able to be who you want to be. And I think a lot of us are trying to discover how to do that or what was even our purpose. The first time I was asked what my purpose was, first time I was asked what my values were, I didn't know. The only thing I knew was to say, well, my values are being a professor. They weren't about being curious, about having having a free mindset, being kind, working with people. They weren't about that. I didn't know that. I didn't know I wanted connection, variety in my life, curiosity. Those weren't things that I was ever taught while I was in academia, were important values to have. The values in academia mainly centered around the metrics that I could, succeed in getting. So it's been quite a journey. And so I guess these podcasts, a lot of them, people share how they got to where they are. And that, I hope, helps you to see a way forward, a path, one person's path, but it is a path. And maybe it's one you haven't been shown before. So today, our guest, it works in the field of discernment, Ignatius, discernment. And I think I feel like this episode, which comes after some time, comes after a pause where I've learned a lot, and we discussed that in the episode. It also comes at a time when, I'm reconnecting with someone that I haven't talked to in a while. But I think it also comes to this point of like almost a meta academic misfits of how do we understand where we are and why we're there, and almost like there's something bigger than ourselves to connect to. Don't worry, you don't have to be religious, as Liz says in the episode. She works with a lot of people who are atheists and things like this, but we kind of like, broach that subject because, yeah, academia is a place where a lot of people are like, well, you have to be an atheist. And probably we've all, you know, uh, dabbled in some Richard Dawkins and who was that other guy that talked about religion in a really horrible way that I don't read any of those guys anymore. They were all white guys, weren't they? And they didn't really know anything about what they were talking about because they studied like a completely different thing than what they were, writing about. But I feel like there is this kind of like, there must be, a cynicism about religion when you're in academia. So it was really interesting to delve into the spirituality and not spirituality for its sake, but really about understanding ourselves more and leaning into and finding and aligning our lives more with that purpose, that those purposes, because as Liz says, there's not just one purpose. So I hope that you find this an interesting conversation. I'm so excited. This is the best day ever. And it's been way too long since Academic Misfits has had somebody on. And what better person than Liz Angeli? Thank you for being here.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to tell people who you are? I feel like I could speak and I probably won't say it in a very like succinct way.
I don't know that I'm going to do any better, but let's give it a try. Who are you? Who am I? So I guess let's start with academic titles. I'm an associate professor of English at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There I teach our workplace writing classes, technical writing, writing in health and medicine. But really what I love doing is work with discernment. So helping our students to kind of explore what they want their lives to feel and look like after graduation. And so I teach our undergraduate and graduate versions of our discernment classes. I work with faculty on their discernment too, with who they are called to be, whether it's, an academic or not. So I'm a spiritual director. I'm also the founder of Lumen Living, which is a one-stop shop where I help people find their light so they can illuminate the world. So I do one-on-one sessions with folks. I do workshops. I do retreats. I write. Yeah. I wasn't very succinct. That's probably the best I could do.
Oh, it's amazing. Like every single part was just like, yes, yes, yes. I love like the illuminating, people's, joy in life, where they're supposed to be. I love that. And I love that you have that power. And yeah, I think that's why we kind of like found each other. And yeah, so we go way back.
Yes, we do. We've been working together for a while. So it's really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've come up with, some questions for today, and I absolutely love where our conversation is going to go because as listeners, you're hearing there's academia in there, there's spirituality, there's a recognition that life is more than our job, which I hope this podcast kind of gives you gives people that idea as well, with all the different voices that I have come who talk about thriving in academia, but in a very different way than what academia has allowed to fit. And so this is why I think this conversation's because I think we've never gone a little bit meta. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, what does that mean? What do we mean by not fitting? Like, we could really get down into that. And I mean, I'm sure people may not be prepared for that kind of thinking, but I think a lot of people want those kinds of questions, want those kinds of prompts. And do you know what I mean? So is that what your experience has been like in the last couple of years and since we've been working together?
Yeah, I mean, and that is the work of discernment. And I should define it because I know I've used that a couple of words. So what I specialize in is Ignatian discernment, and that is the discernment practices that are grounded in the spirituality of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And I just because he was a Catholic dude, he was a priest who lived 500 years ago, but he was truly a visionary. I mean, like, he was thinking about a personal spirituality before anybody else was. He was the founder of the Jesuits. So like we have Marquette and Georgetown and Fordham and all those universities because of Ignatius. And so really how I describe Ignatian discernment is it's so much more than decision making. It's really thinking about how you know how to know, and thinking about what your foundation is and what compels you to a life greater than yourself. And then not in like a, total self-sacrificing, codependent, not like that, but a process that helps you align, where do I stand in my power and my strength? And how does that align with what the world needs from me? And so I started doing this because I was a terrible decision maker. Like in my 20s, and probably beyond that, I just could not make decisions. I just trusted that everybody else knew better than I did about my life. And, and then I started working with my spiritual director 8 years ago. I think we started working together in October 2016, and it completely changed my life. And I started learning about Ignatian discernment, and then, started teaching about it. And through this whole process of these past few years, since, we were working together too, it's been this, where am I being invited to next? And it was really hard for me because everything on social media, even though I'm not really on social media anymore, I cut that out about 7 years ago, said a good academic leaves academia. A good business person does not have an academic job. You are, full out, kind of balls to the wall. You have one job, you are an entrepreneur. And I'd been doing entrepreneurship for a while, and I was just like, pitch decks and, asking people for money. And they would say, well, we're not going to invest in you and your company until you leave higher education. And I thought, well, I am not in a position to do that. Like at the time I was single, I didn't have another income to fall back on. And I just kept thinking that all these people, I wanted to tell them, how nice for you that you have had a career where you have been able to make millions of dollars, and you probably have a spouse who takes care of your house, your family. Maybe you do that together. That is not my life.
Yeah.
That isn't my life. And I don't know if that ever will be my life, because through going through this discernment process we're always in discernment. It never stops. I mean, it's just always ongoing. And I just realized, maybe there's something here in higher education, and I fit because I don't fit, if that makes sense. Like I can go on, but I know I've just talked for a lot. And so I want to,
I guess let me go to my question, because there was a specific way I wanted to ask it as well, because you mentioned intentionality. Was there intentionality in your entering of academia?
No, absolutely not. See, after my previous comment about could not make decisions. Oh yeah, I've never been asked that question before. Dang. So I got into academia because I told myself I couldn't do anything else.
Oh, wow.
That I was only ever good enough to be a student. And it wasn't just me that was telling me that. It was my extended relatives, the friends of my parents, who would say to me, who are no longer in our family's lives anymore, but they would say, Liz, you're book smart, you're not street smart, you're, those who can't teach, so maybe you should be a teacher. I mean, just real poison and projection. And looking back, I'm like, yeah, they were incredibly unhealthy. And we're not doing the work that I think we are all called to do, to shed things that we take on and to really learn, one, how our words impact other people, because I also don't think that we're thinking about that right now.
Mm.
And two, like how, like what, I don't know, like where we stop and someone else begins. And so I took all that on, and I, went to college, all that stuff. And I had an interview and I was a psychology major and an Italian studies minor. And I really wanted to be a clinical psychologist, but after I knew I was not ready to go to graduate school after college.
Mm.
And I really wanted to go back to Italy. I studied abroad in Italy and I loved Rome and I wanted to get back there. And I had one job interview to be an adoption counselor at a humane society. And I thought that job was perfect. I had been a veterinary assistant for a handful of years. Like I knew a little bit about, veterinary medical care, all that. I was like, this is going to be great. I can do this. I didn't get the job. And I told myself, well, that's it. Everybody's right. Everybody's right. I can't make it outside of any type of learning institution. And I thought, okay, well, now what am I going to do? And it was my dad he never told me what to do. I had the great fortune of having very supportive parents who guide but don't direct. And, he sat me down my senior year of college. I lived at home and I was super depressed my senior year of college. And he said, we were at our kitchen table and he's like, he always sat like this. He's like, Liz, I'm not going to tell you what to do. He said, I'm going to tell you what I'm observing. He said, you've been tutoring since you were 12 and you really love teaching. You've been always good at English. You want to get back to Italy. Why don't you go to Italy and teach English for a couple of years and then come back and get your PhD or your PsyD to do clinical psychology? And I thought, oh, that's perfect. And I just felt, for the first time, I felt something lift. And I thought, okay, well, then I'm going to go to grad school and get my degree to teach English. And I fell in love with teaching writing. And I then got my PhD. I never made it back to teach in Italy, but it just sort of, I kept going. And even when I was in grad school, my last year, I had thought about leaving academia to go into industry because my PhD is in rhetoric and technical communication. And I still didn't know how to know. Like I was waiting to have a moment like I had with my dad at the kitchen table for someone to say, here's what I'm noticing. Maybe do, and nobody did that. And it's nobody's job to do that. I wasn't in therapy. I didn't know spiritual direction existed. And, there were a lot of other things going on in my life at that time that I was not free to choose. I just felt trapped in a lot of ways. And I thought, well, I've always been good at school. I've always loved my teachers. This is the world I know. I might as well keep going. And it was not the wrong choice by any means. I mean, there's this phrase that my spiritual director uses, which might be St. Augustine. I don't know. I can't remember who actually said it, but it's this phrase that God, the divine, wastes nothing. And now looking back, I can say, oh yeah, this is the experience that taught me X. That's the experience that taught me Y. This is the experience I never want to go through again. So maybe I make a different choice now. So I would say it was a decision I made out of fear and a whole lot of low self-esteem and low confidence. So not a great way to start a career.
No, but I mean, in some ways it sounds like it's also like some of the things that I heard also growing up was, but you're good at this, so why don't you do it because you're good at it, not because like I like it. It's just like you're good at it. And I think then it's really hard to, in the same way when you were talking about like, well, I'm good at these certain things, or I'm good at the technical aspects, and I could go into industry and do this, but we don't usually go like, yeah, but is it something that you really like and want to spend your life doing? I guess because sometimes also people who come from a certain background who don't have like a huge safety net to fall into, you have to make decisions where it's like, well, I'm on my own here, so I'm going to have to make decisions that also I can succeed in. And if I'm good
Yep.
at it, I'm likely to succeed in it. And you know what I mean? So I think there's like a
Yep.
calculation in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking back, I had all sorts of what we call in Ignatian discernment surface desires and disordered attachments doing the work. So it was like the title of the PhD was really important. It was really important to me in my 20s. And, I always knew, even when I was younger, that if I was going to do something, I was going to do it, and I was going to do it well, and I was going to learn as much as I wanted to about or could about I mean, like when I was younger, I was like the biggest Bette Midler fan in the world. And I took it upon myself at age 10 to learn everything I possibly could about her. And it was just like library, research. And, so it was just like, when I get really excited about something, I want to know all the things and I want to see how different pieces connect. And so it makes sense that I ended up getting, a doctorate, but it wasn't without this. Oh, it might be nice to have a PhD after my name, because again, see aforementioned comment about low self-esteem,
Yeah.
that external esteem, it just, and I remember walking across the stage getting hooded thinking, God, I still feel the same. Like nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And it was, it was a great experience. And like, my dissertation chair is one of my favorite humans in the world. And, we had such this beautiful moment, but I just thought, oh man, okay, all right. I guess that wasn't it. I guess there's other work for me to be done.
Absolutely. Do you mean in that sort of like almost imposter syndrome, or like, yeah,
Yeah.
just
And that,
not good
like,
enough?
right. And it's still, it's still something I still wrestle with. I think a lot of people do.
Hmm.
Even just being on LinkedIn and being in this space of being an academic and being, a founder of, a business, it's still like, oh, okay, well, these 5 people are doing this. So I really admire them. So maybe I need to jump ship and just go all in my business, but that doesn't feel right for me.
Mm.
So, and then it's, all these, like, I'm going up for full professor right now. And there's like, that's a big deal. And there's also part of me that's like, that's not that big of a deal. All my friends are, not all, but like a lot of people are leaving their business and they're not. And so it's that balance of, I don't want to shortchange all these accomplishments I've made just because it seems like everybody's leaving academia. And that's not the right choice for me in this moment. And I've been struggling with that for years. And I just feel like, I feel like I'm on the island of misfit toys sometimes by myself. Like, maybe there's other people, but it's it's a lot sometimes.
It's creating your, like, I had a client who came to me and was like, yeah, I think I want to leave academia. And I believe they were a full professor already. But then we found out, or, in the process of working together, they started working on like film. And even though they were in the school of business, they started working on like documentaries and things. And they were like, actually, I'm going to go to the boss, and they did have power within the university, right? So they could
Yep.
like negotiate contracts and things. And they were like, I'm never writing another journal article again. I'm just going to do documentaries. And, I think they had like 100 publications, all this kind of stuff. It really did not matter, right? So,
Yep. Yep.
and they just made a case for it. Like, this is why this is important to my work, and this is how it's going to, and they were doing other things as well, like doing workshops and building a name for the university in different ways. So I think
Yes.
it's what you were saying, like, your goal might be different, the island of misfit toys, like the train who has like square tires.
Yeah. And it works. That's
Yeah.
because, like, I've been a finalist for a couple jobs, outside of academia. And, I whenever I really imagine myself, leaving, it's like, okay, what's driving the bus right now? Is it a real desire of, I can really stand on my strength and better serve the world around me by moving into whatever position I'm interviewing for? Or is it anger at higher education that's driving the bus? For me, that's like 75% of my process of trying to leave academia. As I think a lot of people are upset with a lot of things. Our institution, I'm not even going to go into it, but I had a really difficult summer a couple years ago where I was just like, I'm fed up with this. I am underpaid, which all of us are. Looking at the salary I could be making outside of higher ed, I have a file that I often want to send to the deans to say, here's how much a PhD in the humanities can be making. So don't give me this BS argument that you are paying us our quote unquote market value. Well, I'm not a piece of beef. I don't have, it really upsets me. And so that anger, sometimes, not all the time, is loud and sneaky, and sometimes sounds like, this is the way forward. This is the way forward. And then something will happen in the job process where I'm like, okay, this still doesn't feel right either. So why am I here then? What is it about higher ed that's allowing me to, that wants me to stay? That's not how I want to phrase it, but it's I think about it sometimes. I get to write and get a stable paycheck and benefits, and health insurance, which is very important here. And I can teach, and I have a lot of freedom to do what I want in my classes. And I have a very supportive department and a very supportive dean at the, and deans change, but she's very supportive. And I'm like, okay, I don't know that I want to give up this freedom and flexibility. I don't know that making X number more dollars a year is really gonna make me feel like I feel when I leave my students on the last day of class and go, wow, some of them have really made a lot of gains in these past 16 weeks. And it's like, and maybe that's enough.
Yeah.
Maybe it's my career discernment class, and we were talking about this in the last day, and they're 20-year-olds making these realizations for themselves. One of the students said, two of them built off each other in class, and they were talking about impact. And they're like, I don't know that impact is always what we see it. I think impact sometimes is just holding the door open for someone and smiling at someone on the street. And I went, yes, because the butterfly effect is real. And you have no idea what that person is going to do. It's that, domino effect, and sometimes the best way possible. And it's like, okay, if I can get students to see that, that's the world that I would love us to be in. And I'm not going to be able to do that as a technical writer or an instructional designer or a program developer for some, hospital organization or whatever it might be. It's really, higher ed is, a dumpster fire sometimes. And also, I can't think of another job that gives gives as much freedom and flexibility. And that, of course, is changing with tenure lines going away. And
yes,
so we will see what happens, in the next 5 to 10 years, because this conversation might be I'm sure it's going to be very different in a couple of years, because who knows? We don't know what's going to happen.
We'll need to do it again. I think it's really important. It's one of the first things I used to do with clients is what are you motivated by? And I've even started increasing that motivated by to be in writing, what are you motivated by? In research, what are you motivated by? In teaching, what are you motivated by? Because some people are like, when I taught, I used to love making my PowerPoint slides the most pretty, really striking visually. And I'm like, I could give a crap what they look like visually. If the words are there, if they can read them, okay, that's cool. I'm so practical minded, which is why I didn't buy this nail polish. Somebody else bought it so I'm always like, I would have these short usually because I want to be able to type and I want to be able to dance, but because I have this injury, can't really do much. So now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be pretty looking now.
Yes.
Something
to look at. Some of that movement. Yeah, I just it doesn't go away. You got a little of that, dancing in there.
I'm taking, oh my God, just to tell you. So because I was so upset that I couldn't dance, I actually hired somebody who's a traditional Chinese dancer. Her name is
Wow.
Pei, and she's the director here of Movema, which is an amazing organization, charitable organization. And I was like, Pei, I want to learn. I've never paid attention to my hands. Didn't even know I had fingers. So we do these movements, like just opening up and I was like, wow, had no idea that I had all of this. So when I go
That's
back to
amazing.
dancing, I'm gonna have arms and fingers and everything, all the joints.
Well, that's exact. I mean, it just this experience again. Divine
Mm.
waste nothing. You're more aware of the fullness of your body, which is going to allow you to engage in life differently.
Yes.
You
And
know.
something I was gonna ask you as well, because she asked me something, and it's only those moments when you have that pause, right? And
Mhm.
the pause, so many things happen in that pause.
Oh yes.
And I've had to pause. And she asked me, because I love dancing, but it was
Yeah.
like when you were talking about, oh, those five people and their like pitch deck or their, the way they market themselves or the da 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 da, am I doing it right? Um, I've done that with dancing forever. I look at myself in the mirror. Oh, does that look like the teacher? Oh, yeah, I look like the teacher. I'm happy. She asked me, when are you happy dancing? Because I see you concentrating and working really hard at this. And she's like, this dancing should have like wonder
Ooh.
and joy and curiosity. And I know that you have that because of the work that you do, right? We have wonder, we have curiosity. That's what we have. And she's like, when do you allow yourself to like point and go, huh? And then point and like really, like things are marvelous. I have my own story happening in my own head that I'm playing with, that then the person watching. But it's the same thing when we make decisions.
Mhm.
Somebody else has a story about who we are and why we made those decisions. Your students have stories about who you are. Your spiritual director has stories. We don't really get to control those stories because it's done by our actions and our what I mean, and what they
Oh,
think about those actions. But I found that really freeing because I was like, I've never had like real fun with dancing. I've had fun, but
mhm.
it's been a very almost contained.
Yeah. 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 Like taking the goal out of it is sometimes allows us to be free, and is crazy. Sometimes is I, and I kind of counterculture as it sounds too. I think sometimes letting go of us needing to have a purpose can also free us up for a lot of things too. I mean, I've a lot of my students are well, it's a discernment class, so we talk about a lot of stuff, and their purposes for them, and I use plural because I don't know that we have one singular purpose.
Hmm.
They're starting to say things like, you know, my purpose is to be intentional, kind, and curious. Fantastic. Like that's gonna show up in every area of your life, not just when you're being a dentist or a park ranger or whatever you want to be. And so, like, then other things can come forward. Like, even just watching your face while you did that. I mean, I really was, I'm like, what is she looking at? Like, I want to see what she's looking at. Like, what is she seeing? It was captivating. And it wasn't some big, huge production. I mean, you were just in the moment. And I don't know, it can
Hmm.
really, like, freeing ourselves up to wonder and explore and imagine. That's another reason I love Ignatian Discernment, because he was all about daydreaming and seeing yourself in a situation like that. And I mean, his main book was scripture, but like seeing yourself in the stories of scripture, wondering like, okay, now today I'm going to play the role of the donkey at the manger or whatever. I wonder what it was like to be the donkey in that scene. It's like that is my kind of spiritual exploration.
Wow.
Like I just, it's like, I wonder what it was like to be like that. Or, even just reading like a poem or your favorite story or whatever it is, like, I wonder what it would be like to really be in that situation in a different type of perspective. And it just can unlock so many things that have been tied up in us that we don't even realize.
Yeah. When do you feel that? What are you doing when you feel that kind of joy or that kind of freedom or that kind of like liberation from the critical eye? Do you have moments like that?
Honestly, when I am doing workshops on discernment, like I feel so alive when I am in front of people and connecting with a group. It's and then it's not to say that the critic doesn't come up afterwards, where it's just like, could have done that better. And I'm a Virgo, this about me. Like, I'm a Virgo and I'm a 1 on the Enneagram. And so it can be really hard to be in my head sometimes. And so having that, when it's go time, like when it is my time, I love it. I absolutely love it. And, I really feel connected to just things that are outside of myself by being in the presence of, other people. And, it's, I would say that. And sometimes when I'm writing, like when I'm really hitting, I don't like to, like, it's kind of in the zone, but it sometimes feels different than that. It's just like, okay, here it is, write it out. I wish that happened more often than it does, but it's one of those things like you can't control. It's like, I open up whatever I'm working on. It's like, oh, I wonder what today's going to look like. Maybe it'll be 3 sentences. Maybe it'll be 3 pages. Maybe I'm just going to tinker and line edit for a little bit, but it will get somewhere.
Wow. I think like some people might be surprised by that, or I'm surprised by that, because sometimes I'm like, no, you said you were going to write three paragraphs today. Like, you have to do it. Do you kind of go with what you check in with yourself and go, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a huge transformation for probably our listeners.
Yeah, I so like, again, like my PhD is rhetoric, writing studies, technical communication. Writing is really hard. Period, full stop. That's why people are taking shortcuts now to be efficient. I have a lot of feelings about all that.
AI everywhere. Yes. Oh my God.
And I am deeply concerned for a lot of reasons, but the writing process is supposed to be hard because critical thinking and reflection is hard. I make the analogy of, if you go into the gym and just look at all the weights and go, I want to be able to bench 50 pounds, 150 pounds, and I'm just going to stand here and expect to just get my strength up just by looking at this, or just by being in the presence of this. It is not going to happen. Like brain development, this as a psychologist, like critical reflection skills, critical writing skills, it's the same thing. And I currently have a lot of feelings about this. And
anyone listening, she's having a lot of feelings about this.
I'm having a lot of feelings.
I know that your human design involves a lot of like, and yes. And
oh, yes. It's like, it is ingrained in me. Like, and if you saw my astrological chart, I think there's also a lot of that. It's a lot. And, I really, and like, I get it. Using AI, it's tempting. It is. And, but it's just like, I don't, and it's good for some things. Like, I'm not gonna, I understand why people use all that stuff, but like writing is like, you're working through ideas so that you can communicate with another person. And that connection can only come from within, not from a series of zeros and ones, which is when I really struggle too, because a lot of technology is grounded on the principle of we need to be efficient.
Yeah.
And efficiency in Ignatian discernment is a disordered attachment. It's a surface desire that you work with a spiritual director to help understand why that is important to you, what's underneath it, what is it keeping you from really doing, and then you heal it and let it go. And not forever, because it can come back, but like power is a distorted attachment, prestige, control, fame, excess wealth, like even like
So how do
wanting
we put
to live. Oh, go ahead.
how do we put the earth through this this
I
healing
know.
process?
Yes, and that's exactly it. It's like a lot of stuff that we're doing is, and not we, like big picture, it's all disordered attachments. And you look around the world and the world is dying. And it's like, of course it is, because we are dying on the inside. And, when our inner life doesn't reflect our outer life, it is in this case, and you can get a sense of like, okay, we are having severe extreme weather. Makes sense. Our political climate and our internal climates are full of rage and fear and just trying to battle all these things. It's like, I don't know. I've seen it happen, especially I had one of the best classes and I've been teaching for 19 years. My career discernment group this year was one of the most special groups of students I have ever had the honor and privilege of accompanying for 16 weeks. And so many of them on their own, like, of course, the course is designed to help them, do this work, but they would say, I want to make money and be comfortable. And they would be willing to do the work of what that is. So what is comfortable? Maybe it's not having a brand new house built in a new development that's going to cause all these trees to go away and never come back. Maybe it's living in an apartment or a condo or a co-op or whatever it might be. And, they did a lot of this deeper work of, like, they see the destruction that technology is doing, that AI is doing. And a lot of that is fueling their next steps decisions, because they either want to support people who have been impacted by it. I have two students who, like, their foundation of their discernment process was earth and care for creation. Like, that was their, what we call first principle and foundation. And they had, it was just beautiful watching them wrestle with a lot of this stuff all semester. And they're like, okay, I think that maybe my next step is an internship doing preservation work, or maybe I want to be a scientist who works at a conservancy and not at a big chem company, and it's like, yes, this is the way forward. It takes a lot of courage and self-awareness, and you got to have the community to help you do it, because you can't discern alone. It doesn't work that way. It's a big group effort. And, I like, this is stuff that I think about. I'm sure a lot of people do every day. It's like, what are we doing? And how can we as academics make that change happen in the classroom? Like, I think we have so much power in the classroom that we sometimes forget, because we're asked to be like, okay, now your course loads are going up, your class sizes are going up. Now we're trying to get these students out in 3 years. And it's like, whoa. Yeah. Let's slow down a little bit here. Like, let's think about the impact of all these decisions that's going to like, what is this going to look like in 5 to 10 years? I mean,
and they're getting rid of, like, a lot of the humanities, right? So
yep.
It's all about, well, what can you make money doing, right? And what's going to be the profitable thing. So how separated do you think discernment, 'cause, like, are you in a good place for the discernment work that you were able to do? Like, how did that happen that you were able to run these, like, workshops and do these things? Or can it happen outside of religion? Can it happen outside of, like, the place where you're at? How do you see it kind of, like, placed in academia and in our society?
So I'll answer the second question, and then work my way back to the first. I see Ignatian discernment as it's based in Catholicism, like, it's a Catholic tradition, and it's open to anybody who is wanting to learn how to respond to what the world is asking of them. And Ignatius was, like I said before, he was very forward thinking. And he has a note in the spiritual exercises, which is what the discernment's housed in. And it says that the discernment process needs to, and it's the job for the spiritual director when you're accompanying someone through this, to help the discerner adapt the discernment process for them. Because Ignatius really believed that, and I'm going to use the word God because that's the word that Ignatius uses, that God works however God is going to work through each person. So sometimes that's not through the name God at all. Sometimes that is through the idea of community. Like I work with folks who community is their spiritual practice. And when they are cut off from community, they are moving into what Ignatius would call desolation, like real withdrawal, isolation. Sometimes that comes in as depression. You're not able to make decisions that are really grounded in this feeling of, okay, I know what's being asked of me because I'm thinking clearly and I can ask for help or whatever, the situation might be. But I work a lot with, like I have students and faculty and clients that I work with, and people come to my workshops who are atheists and let me know that up front. I'm like, that's great. You're welcome here. You're absolutely welcome here. Because normally people can think of a situation or an experience that has compelled them to think beyond themselves. And like, for me, that's the divine. Like, what is other than human? What is non-human? What is, it's just like, who am I to say what, the person who's going to come to me for spiritual direction? I don't know what their relationship with the divine is like. They might not even use that word. I've got folks I accompany who we do not use the word God because they cannot use the word God because they have been seriously harmed physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, in the name of religion. And, we then journey together in helping them reclaim that, help them find that source of love, justice, compassion, whatever that is for them. And then we see, okay, now that you've reconnected with that, what is life asking of you? How is that? I'm trying to think, like great mystery, or I used to not be able to use the word God for years. And my spiritual director and I used the word loving energy, because that's how I experienced it was, I know that I am connected with something that is outside of myself while also connecting me with the world around me when I feel this experience of loving energy.
Yeah.
So I again, my degree's in rhetoric. Language frustrates me to no end because we have to use it in order to explain it, but it limits, and it just like I don't even use pronouns when I talk about the divine anymore, because it's like, it's not she, it's not he, it's not they, it's not it. The divine is the divine. The universe is universe. All that is beyond my understanding. I maybe have this much, and then you have this much, and then someone else has this much, and then we come together, and I think we each have insight into what this, maybe capital T, is.
Yeah.
And discernment can help do that.
Yeah. That is amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, like, is it resistance in bringing this into the university?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Part of me is, I don't know what to say. Cavalier is the wrong word. When I really believe in something, I'm just doing it. Like, again, Virgo 1, all that. Like, it's like, it's important to me. And luckily, I have the great fortune of working at a Jesuit institution. And so Ignatius is part of our DNA, part of our very foundation and mission. And when I do that, even on campus, I talk like this. I don't use Bible verses. Spiritual exercises uses the Bible as the main form of helping us with discernment. I'm like, that works for a lot of people. It also doesn't work for a lot of people. And so, like, I use quotes from RuPaul, and Kelly Bishop has a memoir, like The Third Gilmore Girl. I draw from her. I'm listening to Molly Shannon's memoir right now, and she's got some stuff from like, ooh, I think I'm going to pull from that the next time I teach my discernment class.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I really am enjoying it.
Oh, wow.
But I have been encouraged to make discernment secular. And even in the book I'm working on right now about Ignatian discernment, there was a comment that said, I might take this God stuff out of this part. And I went, no, because that would be appropriating a 500-year-old tradition and co-opting it. And I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I would be disingenuous to this tradition that has helped millions of people, from all walks of life. And I really see it as sort of one of my discernments is, working on this book, and it is one of the hardest things I have done, but talking about Ignatian discernment in a way that makes sense for our times. And how it makes sense for our times is not using the exact language that Ignatius used, but still finding the spirit of what he was doing and bringing it to, people who are agnostic, atheist, spiritual but not religious, Buddhist, Jewish, whatever it might be. It's a big spectrum.
Yeah.
And if you're interested, you'll know. That's the thing. I always trust that people find their way. And, I've had workshops with students where, they've sat for, it was a 3-hour workshop. Students were there for an hour and then they left. And I just thought, okay, you got what you needed. Seeds maybe were planted. That's all I can do. You have no idea what's going to happen in 5-10 years.
Yeah. So was there something where because I feel like you are a perfect person to be in this. It sounds like you found your place in this because you said, this is where I feel most at home, right? I feel really good when I'm in that space, when I'm running these workshops. Was there, but your degree is in rhetoric, you teach technical writing, that sort of stuff. Where did it happen that you found these strengths within yourself? And what did you learn about yourself in that process?
I know it's so cliche, but I never could have envisioned that this is what my career was going to look like. For the first 10 years, I was working with firefighters and paramedics and helping them document patient care more effectively and teaching them effective writing skills. And it makes sense looking back, there is almost no more area of medicine more unpredictable than EMS and fire. It's that's what it is. And I loved it. I was an EMT for, a while and all that. And and then I'm trying to think when it actually started. So I've always been interested in spirituality and Catholicism. I've thought about becoming a nun no less than 3 times in my life, as recently as earlier this year. And I am in a committed partnership. It was a moment of oh my God, this can't be coming up again, because I know that this relationship is the relationship. And then doing discernment work, it's all right, good people are tempted by the good. Being a nun is a good thing, but it's not for me. And so I've always been close to nuns. My spiritual mentor, her name was Sister Arlene Einwalter. She died a year and a half ago. And I just have always had this has always been a part of me. And I was very active in church. I, again, had the great fortune of being in a church community that I never felt like being gay was wrong. I had extended relatives who were in other types of Christianity that made me feel ashamed and, okay, maybe there is something wrong with me. But, it was always very supportive. But then I went to grad school and I went to my PhD program, and I was out with people for the first week. I think we were there, and we were going out for drinks. And I just kind of casually said to somebody, without even thinking about it, because it was just so core to who I am, I said, I'm Catholic. And this person looked at me and said, aren't you smart enough to be an atheist? And I went, okay, so I guess I'm supposed to be in a very open-minded, feminist, intersectional program. And clearly I just got judged and shut down.
Wow.
So I put that part away for, and
What university was it? Did you go where?
I went to Purdue. It was a public university. It was Purdue. And I was so fortunate that I had two professors who invited me to go to church with them. One of them ended up being my dissertation chair.
Oh, wow.
And his name is Rick Johnson Sheehan, everybody. Like, I love Rick. Rick is still one of my favorite people. And I went to the Episcopal church on campus, and like, he would be there on Sunday with his family. And it was great. And, you know, and I had professors who were taught by nuns and were Catholic, and we could talk about that stuff, and it was great. But when I came back to Marquette, all this to say, you know, flash forwarding, you know, years, I started working with my spiritual director, you know, whose name is Michael. And I heard a call to become a spiritual director when I was on silent retreat years ago. And I remember, I can picture exactly where I still was. And I heard this voice that just said, consider spiritual direction. And I went, that's dumb. Like, I'm already in spiritual direction. And I thought, of course, if I'm going to have this great mystical experience, it's going to be something that I already know. Cool. So like, I go to my spiritual direction session with Michael, and I'm like, Michael, I got to tell you what just happened. And he said, what if that voice is inviting you to become a spiritual director? And I said, I can't do that. That sounds hard. I can't do that. Like, I can't do what you do for people because you are incredibly gifted, and there's no way that I could have those gifts. I teach right. Like, there's no way. So everything just sort of built, and I went to spiritual direction training, got my certificate. Then I started working with people. Then I started wondering, what would it look like to bring into the classroom? Then I still don't know how this happened, but I had this activity called a discernment map in one of my classes. And I got called by Mission and Ministry to a Teams meeting years ago. And I was like, what is happening? And so I come on the screen and they're like, Liz, can you tell us about this discernment map? And I thought, how did you get a hold of this? Like, I don't know how. And so I told them about it, and they said, we want you to run an activity for Mission Week this year on your discernment map. Okay. And I thought, okay. And it just sort of kept growing from there. And, you know, and it has not been without its growing pains. Like, I left my work with the first responders years ago with no real clear understanding of why I was feeling the need to close that. But as soon as I closed that, and I had to leap into something that was totally unknown, that allowed for space and energy and time for like my discernment classes to develop, and for Lumen Living to become, you know, whatever, you know, it's going to become. And so and like, I still do the work of, what have I learned in graduate school? What have I learned, you know, and I'm back to school right now at Loyola Chicago, because I know that I have more to learn about ministry and spirituality. And you know, it's the slow unfolding never stops.
I love that closing that chapter also allowed other things to blossom. And yeah, have you, in the same ways that you said to the spiritual director, you've got all these gifts, are you now more aware? Or has somebody come to you and said, "Ooh, Liz, but you have all these gifts." Are there things that you've learned from your community that have even opened up your spectrum of the things that you're able to do for people?
Yeah, I think I learned more about what I'm good at from other people. And that sounds like exactly what I said earlier, but it's different now. Because I sometimes get limited in how I describe what I have to offer, because I only have my life experience. But kind of like what you were saying earlier, I learn what discernment is from reading my students' final reflections. I learn what Ignatian discernment is from the workshops that I go to and the questions people ask, or whatever we're creating, or whatever the focus of the retreat or the workshop is. And then I flat out asked one of my colleagues a couple of years ago, because she hired me to do a discernment workshop. And I just said, can you please tell me why you hired me? I said, I don't discount it, but I said, I need more words to describe what I do. And she said, yeah. She said, you make spirituality practical. Like you're very grounded. You're very, it's not this esoteric, it is this esoteric thing, but you're able to bring it into lived experience in a way that brings people in rather than shuts people out. And I thought, that's awesome, because that's what I was hoping I was doing without even realizing that that's what I was doing. And, and I learn a lot from, student evals when they write, what was good about the course or what could have been better. It's like, oh yeah, maybe we needed to spend more time on that, or maybe I could have explained that in a different way. And, so spiritual direction has helped a lot with me kind of discerning my gifts and, how that can respond to what the world needs. I keep thinking about like this book that I'm working on. I'm really struggling with parts of it. And my last session with Michael was just talking about, how do I talk about God without naming God? And he said, well, let's go back through your own story about how you came to that. And we revisited it, and I said, oh my God, Michael, I have to write about that. I said, that has to be in the book. And he said, I think so. He said, I think that is going to help open people to what this could look like, and that you can change your mind, that maybe you couldn't call the divine for 8, 10, 20, 30 years, but you are not stuck with what you've been doing or what you've been given or what you've been taught. So it's, yeah.
I think that's a big part, like it's weird that you said you can change your mind, because I just wrote like a post today. I didn't post it because that's what I do nowadays, is I write and I don't share it. I think I'm at a time where I need to hold on to things and share them when I'm ready. But I wrote about changing your mind, because I'm the same. I don't know what I provide to people until they tell me. And then I have to remember to write exactly what they said down, reflect on it, and then go, how do I put this into my own words? Or maybe I use their words, or does it give me insight into something else? Maybe it gives me insight into how academia went sometimes. And that was what it did, the change your mind, because my client that I'm doing evaluations for said, Luna, you're just so curious. It was such a powerful word than all the other times that they're like, oh, you're such a genius with data, blah, 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 blah. But the curious was like, tell me more. Like, I want to learn more about this. She didn't have enough to, like we were just on a quick Zoom call. But I thought about it and I was like, that's really a powerful thing, because it's about listening. It's about adapting. It's about not having all the answers. And I always felt like in academia, I was doing everything wrong, because you're supposed to have the answers. You're supposed to, even with students, right? Like, oh, well, you're the one that should have the answers, especially as a woman or a woman of color. If you don't have the answer, then you shouldn't be there, right? Like, so it just felt very different being curious in academia.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love how you were curious about the comment about being curious. Like, it was so meta. I was like, there it is. There it is. Like, you didn't just accept it and go, yeah, you did that, and then you wanted to know more. Thus proving the point.
I didn't just like write it on a T-shirt and then.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think that really is one of your strengths, and it's too bad that higher ed has become this place where, like, we encourage our students to be curious. We teach them how to do that, and yet, it's this pressure of, well, if I'm a scientist, all my research has to go a certain way because I can't publish failed, whatever that means, because failure, and again, as a, Virgo 1, I just now am wanting the feedback that doesn't tell me that I failed, but tells me that I could do better. So like the program I'm in at Loyola, I've taken a lot of counseling classes, and all of that is live demos. You are, working with the model client, a practice client, and we are getting feedback. And that process made me realize I remember what one of my professors this semester called them recommendations and commendations. I remember the recommendations a lot more than I remember the commendations. Because
Mm.
it's like, oh, yeah. Relax my eyebrows when I'm in session with someone. Don't look like this. Like, sit back a little bit. Take a beat. Silence is not bad. All that stuff just really sticks with me in a way that I think my 20-year-old self would have just been like, no. Cannot receive criticism. Criticism means you are a fundamentally flawed person and you're just going to crumble and go away and not,
Yes.
like fade like the Wicked Witch of the West. Um, and
Yeah.
it's like now I see it differently. I mean, it's not that it's hard to get that feedback sometime, but
Yeah.
after the initial
Yeah.
sting, it's like, okay, this is actually going to help me, in this process. And so,
Mm.
yeah, it's I don't remember why I brought that up. I'm just gonna go with it.
I just love that you brought up failure because I'm like, I feel like we could have another hour on that. Do you know what I mean? In
Probably.
academia, do you know what I mean? Because I
Oh
think,
yeah.
yeah, what correction is meant. And I remember when I went for my first interview for a job outside of academia, and the guy was like, "So you're going to be writing with a lot of other people. Like we write as a team.
Mm.
Um, and when you're in academia, oftentimes write on your own." So he was like, "Are you going to be okay like taking feedback from other people?" And I was like, I mean, reviewer two is like a big joke, right? But
Yes.
a lot of people do have like need like a week after reviewer two,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like, how am I going to argue against your reviewer two? Do you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
not really a collaborative, collegiate kind of way of writing. So
Right.
I think there is kind of that failure, that failure. Yeah.
Mm. Well, and because so much of our identity is wrapped up in our job titles and our performance.
Mm,
And I think this gets back to like if we divorce purpose from a job title, like purpose does not equal job title. Like it's so much deeper than that. So like if your purpose is being a curious human and showing up with your curiosity in every interaction that you find yourself in, that then is a very different space than I'm a writer.
mm.
Like, sure, you're a writer, but like maybe you're a writer because you're a curious person. Like, you can also be a curious person and be an archaeologist or a spiritual director or, whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
just, it kind of takes the pressure off. And, we do not do a good job of that in higher ed. And I'm sure other areas too. But yeah, it's really just learning like you are not your job title. Like
Mm,
you are so much more than that. You are worth more than that. Like you matter outside of all the degrees hanging on your walls or the student evals or it's just but it's hard. It's hard when everything else says the opposite.
yeah, absolutely. Um, One of the things we started talking about was, yeah, I just got like two more things.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to a podcast and they were talking about purpose. And it was such like I don't know, it was a revelation to me the way they described it. I'll try to find the podcast for people who are listening. But it was a medical doctor. I remember that. I can't remember her name. But she was talking about how many of us are floating, and I think it's where we started the conversation of how whether was there intentionality in going into academia, that a lot of us are floating, right, being swayed by society, by rules, by all the messaging that we receive, and it leaves us rudderless. And I remember you were talking about like who is driving your bus, and I think like a lot of us, our purpose becomes synonymous with the higher plan that the university has,
Mm-hmm.
with our maybe our family's expectations, whatever, that we don't have our own rudder.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, and now how do you feel differently? Who is driving your bus, or where do you find your rudder? Do you have like, I guess because you've been kind of giving people some advice about, how to go about separating their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how does that speak to you?
Um, it hits to my core because it goes back to in Ignatian language what he calls the first principle and foundation, and for him, it's to serve God, whatever that is. It's, like Ignatius wanted to be a missionary. That's what he wanted to do. But all the decisions led him to starting the Society of Jesus, writing these books. And who knows what would happen if he had just followed his own path rather than really staying on his foundation of, no, this is going to allow me to do X. I've done a lot of work with the first principle and foundation just for myself. And I rewrote St. Ignatius's principle and foundation. And my foundation is love, capital L. Like that, whatever is going to help me grow in this feeling that I know is this loving energy that helps me bring others to whatever their first principle and foundation is, because it's not the same as mine. It's different. That's the foundation that I stand on. And I do workshops on finding your foundation, where the whole purpose of the workshop is, what is this? Like, what compels you to go outside of yourself? And for some, when I just did a workshop with faculty a couple months ago, and people's answers were justice, love, peace, inclusion, belonging, like compassion, all these, community was a big one. Like all these things, when brought together, I mean, that's the way forward. We can't all do that ourselves. Like we need each other to stand on our own foundation. So we're not, I love that. So we're not floating. And I have to be attuned to that every time I sit down to write, because it's like, well, I could do the blog post, I could do the LinkedIn post, or I could work on the book. And it's like, okay, the blog post and the LinkedIn post, that's going to give me impressions. So maybe I should do that. And meanwhile, my book is just sitting back here, kind of taking a back seat. And it's like, and then after, and it happens every time. It's not that the writing, the LinkedIn post and the blog posts aren't good. Like they're doing what they need to do. But after I work on the book, there's this deeper sense of, yep, that was 20 minutes that made me feel connected to this foundation. The other writings have a little bit of that, but it's not as deep. And, it's sort of, and that's the thing too. I have no idea what's going to happen with the book. It might not get picked up. Nobody might read it. I'm not going to get that immediate feedback that you get from, analytics. And for me, that's always the way of my discernment process. The uncertain path is the path forward, because it has more freedom, it has more risk, it has more fear, but there's also a lot more of like, oh, I can sort of do what I'm feeling led to do, rather than, oh, I have to do this because this is what LinkedIn is telling me I have to do, or Squarespace is telling me I have to do, or whatever it might be. It's just like, no, I can live over here in this fun sandbox of, I don't know what the hell this is going to be.
I love this fun sandbox.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to have to remember that when I open the book next. It's like, okay, this is the fun sandbox.
Yeah. Well, when you were saying, because this is the part where I'm going to ask you about the song, but when you were saying the big L, I just kept thinking of L is for the way you look. But I'm sure that's not your song.
Well, it's not too far though. It's kind of close to it, sort of.
But yeah, what's in your playlist, or what's your theme song, or what's your me and my clients the other day tried to think of our theme song for like 2025. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's 2025 got a song? Most of mine are like, yeah, they're deep and like I'm going through some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what have you got?
I have been thinking about this ever since you reached out to me to be on your podcast. And there are the answers that I think I should say, but the one that keeps coming back is the one that I'm like, I don't know how this is going to land, and I'm just going to go with it. So it is Bette Midler's version of Shiver Me Timbers. And it's not on the Songs for the New Depression album, which is where she originally sang it. It is on her Live at Last album. And I have been listening to that song. It was one of my most listened to songs for like the past 3 years on Spotify. And I was in voice lessons for a while because I love singing, and I used to be a singer like long time ago, and that was a song I was working on, and I love that particular version of the song because she introduces it again. It's a live album with a joke, very Bette Midler,
Ah.
like it's funny, and then she sings this beautiful ballad that I've been listening to since I was 9 years old. Like her Experience the Divine cassette tape was the first tape I ever bought, and I think that's track 7 on there. And it's a greatest hits album. And now, decades in the future, I'm like, God, this song is so deep. Like this song is about letting go and saying goodbye and being okay with that and being one with your environment. At least that's how I see it now. So she sings this it's just gorgeous. And then she fades out, the crowd starts applauding, and it sounds like she's on the verge of tears, and she's surprised. She's like, thank you. Why, thank you. And then people, I guess, stand up, and she's like, sit down. Like, just, And so, like, there's the humility that she is just surprised. I think that's what I find so awe-inspiring about this song is she's just doing what Bette Midler, the Divine Miss M, does. And she impacts people at a level that I'm going to start, like, that I don't know a lot of entertainers have the ability to do. Like she's, doing a burlesque show 1 minute, and then the next minute she's bringing people to tears. And I just, that depth of range of her in that 5 minutes or whatever it is, like that speaks to me. And I'm sure if I spent more time with it, I could articulate why. But I've always looked up to her. And as I've, gone through different phases of my, life and now in adulthood, like that's one thing I really admire about her is yeah. So I highly recommend but it's the very specific Live at Last.
I
think it's on. Yeah, it's on. It just popped up yesterday for me, and I was like, oh yeah, I think this is the song.
That divine timing where it just came up.
Yes, with the Divine Miss M. I mean, it's no surprise that like when I was 9 years old and I saw Hocus Pocus in the theaters, I was like, who is this? And I need to know more about her. And I think my parents were like, that's Bette Midler. She's known as the Divine Miss M. I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that? And yeah. And then that was one of those pivot moments of my life. My life probably would have been very different if I had not begged my parents to take me to see that movie for my 9th birthday.
And she, like you said, she does one thing 1 minute and then another thing the next minute, but she still brings like herself to all of those. You know what I mean? You still have like, her, and when you see her on film, her when you hear the music. There's no like mistaking it. And I don't know, there's something about your story, and what you've been talking about. Like, well, I'm a singer and I also have been an EMT, and you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different, but at the same time, you were saying a lot of that uncertainty. I loved being in that realm. There was a lot that I could have noticed.
That's true. That's true. Thank you for reflecting that back. See, perfect example. Like we community to help us deepen and learn, and and that tracks. Like that settles deeply. So thank you for reflecting that back. What a gift.
This has been such a great conversation. I feel so like warm and yes.
This is a blast. Thank you for listening to me. And your questions are, curiosity, right? I mean, your questions are, even when we're working together in coaching, like I still think about a lot of those conversations and how we got on to talk about Harold and Maude one day, and it made sense. Like it made sense in the context of what we were doing.
Yes.
And so like that's this has been a great joy.
Yes, so same. Yes, I hope it's not too long again until we get to chat. But I hope that the audience loves this. This is a great Christmas gift for everybody.
Yes, yes, yeah, and all the holidays and light. It's always finding that light because we all have it, and the world desperately needs it.
So can people find you online? Where can people find you?
Yep. So I post on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Liz Angeli. That's where I do most of my posting. Lumen Living also has a LinkedIn account, but following me on LinkedIn is the best way to do that. I also have accounts on for Lumen on Instagram and Facebook, and so everything gets posted across platforms. Just because, as much as I sort of balked at the idea of being on social media, I was like, well, people need to be able to find you, and so I was like, okay, I can at least do this. I write about monthly on my blog called Mundane Wisdom, Finding the Deeper Truths in Everyday Experiences. And so people can sign up for that on my website. My website will, I'm sure, be in the show notes, but it's
I need to do that.
lumenllc.com. So yeah, you can find me there. I keep my workshops kind of up to date too. And if anyone wants to meet me for a discovery, session just to see if we'd be a good fit to work together, my calendar is about 6 to 8 weeks out. So you can book on there too. And happy to talk about workshops, retreats for students, faculty, staff. Doesn't matter the discipline. I've done discernment workshops for business. I'm doing occupational therapy next semester. I'm doing college comm next semester. It's just discernment across the curriculum is what I call it when we do stuff with students and faculty.
Amazing.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.